What is going on, guys? I'm back today to do another video that I've done quite a few of this year, and I've had a lot of fun doing these videos, and I thought this would be perfect for the Halloween season because it is a very dark and horrific story written by Stephen King, which a lot of these videos have been based on Stephen King material because Stephen King has written a lot of books that have been turned into movies. And I have a lot of fun watching movies that are based off of books and then vice versa, reading books that are then turned into movies to just kind of see how the material translates. And Stephen King is a really interesting author because I feel like his works really vary for me. There's works of his that I just think are so incredibly important, well written, well structured, that don't spend a lot of time meandering, that like they get to the point and they keep you immersed. And then there's other stories of his that I just feel like are really poorly written and not well structured and that don't really keep my attention all that much. And I was very excited to read this property today because I'd never read the book before, but I have seen the movie probably 5 times since its initial release because it is from director Mike Flanagan, and it is one of my favorite films that Mike Flanagan has done, and that's Gerald's Game. And I really wanted to see what the book was like and how Flanagan translated it into a film, because he's also done that with Dr. Sleep, which I have not read Dr. Sleep, but I'm looking forward to reading it so that I can do a video very similarly about that. And I'm very excited to talk about Gerald's Game with you today. Gerald's Game is directed by Mike Flanagan. When her husband's sex game goes wrong, Jessie, who is handcuffed to a bed in a remote lake house, faces warped visions, dark secrets, and a dire choice. So, as I said, I have seen this movie several times. I want to say like 4, maybe 5 times since its initial release, and I'd never read the book before. And so this was one of those instances where I'm already really familiar with the material, but I'm going back and reading King's book. And what I will say is I was pretty bored through most of the runtime of King's book. I think this falls guilty of something about King that I can't stand, which is repetitive dialogue that gets you nowhere. I think King has become one of these authors that is so established in his career and has done so much that, like, if he wants something in a book, it's gonna stay there and no one's going to tell him to edit it out. I think that's why so many of his books are as long as they are. And this book spends so much time having the same cyclical, repetitive dialogue, which you could say that that would happen because most of the book is one character trapped in a space having conversations in their own head and in their thoughts. But Mike Flanagan takes the same material and makes it far more interesting, paces it way better, makes an actual payoff to the story, builds this mystery surrounding this set of events, and unveils it to you in the last like 25 minutes of the film. And that's really where I feel the book falls short comparatively to the movie. And I'll break it down a little bit in this review. So very simply, Gerald's Game. In both stories, it's a husband and wife couple. Gerald, played by Bruce Greenwood, who was just in Fall of the House of Usher, and Carla Gugino, who plays Jessie, and that's really our main characters through the film and the book. In the book, it is implied at the beginning that they've taken this trip together. They're already in this room about to have sex. In the movie, we're given the entire drive to the cabin. We get some dialogue beforehand. We get a huge setup before the actual thing happens. And so what happens is they're going out there because their marriage is falling apart. They think this is a way to reinvigorate their marriage. Gerald ends up handcuffing Jessie to the bed. Something happens where she becomes very uncomfortable in a moment where he starts getting very aggressive. It makes her feel not comfortable whatsoever. And through this circumstance, he ends up having a heart attack and dying on the floor. And so she's handcuffed to the bed with her husband lying dead at the foot of the bed. And she has to figure out how to get herself uncuffed so that she can survive. While being cuffed there is a dog outside that in the movie, she sees the dog outside when they arrive. They actually end up giving the dog steak, I want to say, at the beginning of the film. In the book, it's just like she hears a dog barking outside. Dog ends up coming inside, eating her husband. It's similarly structured, but there's a lot different going on. And one of the things I really like about Flanagan's compared to Stephen King's work In Flanagan, she's like seeing herself walk around the room, having a conversation with herself. She's seeing visions of her husband. There's like all these really interesting visual choices to the conversations that she's having in her brain to keep you as a viewer invested. Whereas in King's story, he's like bringing up her old college roommate and all of these things where she's having these conversations in her brain, and they're just so repetitive and uninteresting. And there's this event that keeps being brought up about this solar eclipse that happened when she was a child, and something that happened between her and her father. And in the film, it's alluded to, but we're not 100% sure what it is. And throughout her time being handcuffed to this bed, she's having visions of things. It's bringing up past trauma for her. And so throughout the film, we're trying to figure out what happened, what got her to this point, what is this emotional trauma that she suffered in her youth. In King's version, it's revealed in like the first like 100 and some pages as to what happened, and there's no real mystery surrounding it. So when the story actually ends up playing out, you're so much less invested because you already know. It's really just like, oh, here's this absolutely horrible thing that happened to this person, let's just tell you about it. Where in Flanagan's adaptation, it's keeping you questioning it, like you don't know what it is. And if you've never read the material before, you have no idea what it's going to be, which to me made it so much more fascinating of a journey to try to unveil what happened to her. And I think it really shows how powerful of a character that Jessie is, a powerful female character who has suffered a lot in her life and has dealt with a lot of horrible trauma and has somehow overcome that trauma and married this person who is not a good husband, who is very sort of belittling because of his position of power, really kind of takes advantage of her. And then in the third act, which I don't want to give away, kind of shows even more how powerful of a woman that she is. And I really like that part of Flanagan's adaptation, is it's so much more focused on Jessie as a character and how powerful of a woman that she is, and how the trauma that she faced in her life has brought her to this point, but she is not going to let her trauma control her. And I think that's a beautiful story that is so well done. And one of the things that makes it so incredible is Carla Gugino's absolutely amazing performance. You're putting this character in a room alone. Yes, she's seeing these visions, but most of it is going to be through her facial expression, through her bodily movements, to really keep you invested through the entire runtime of this film, because other than flashbacks to things that were happening before, you're really not leaving the room all of that much. And Flanagan's such a great director when it comes to production design and cinematography anyway, that he does a great job keeping you compelled each shot and each frame. And there's obviously this other part of the story that gets a little bit more in the supernatural territory, or so you think as a viewer, where she keeps seeing this man at the foot of her bed and in the corner of this room, and he keeps reappearing, and she doesn't know who he is or why he's there, and she thinks it's a hallucination. And so the entire part of the movie, you're thinking, is this person real? Is it an entity? Is it a figment of her imagination? Where in the book, it's like, that doesn't even come into play until like 3/4 of the way into the book or later, and it really doesn't pack nearly as much of an emotional punch as the film does. And the third act ends relatively similar. They're not too drastically different. And I don't want to talk about the ending if you've never watched the film or read the book, because I think the film is 100% worth checking out. I think that it's such a powerful story that is so well written, that has really amazing performances. And the book, just like I said, it spends so much time doing the same thing over and over again. I have a really hard time kind of saying go read the book, because there were points in it, which I don't like saying this for King, but I felt like I was wasting my time. It felt like I was reading the same thing over and over again and not getting any new development for the character. Whereas I watch Mike Flanagan's hour and 40-minute movie, and I don't feel like it's meandering in any way. I feel like he's constantly building the character and constantly focusing on her struggle. And I just think that the film is better executed in every way comparatively to the book. I think that it's way better. I think that it utilizes its runtime better, and it's an incredibly effective film. There are some truly horrific imagery in this movie, and in the book as well. It's painted in a similar way. in the book. And it's just really horrifying knowing that this person had to experience these things in her childhood and what she's going through to have to get out of these handcuffs. And it really, the visual images in Flanagan's, there's a scene in this movie that probably made me cringe more than any movie has in years. I don't get grossed out by gore a lot, and it's the way that it's shot, and it's the sounds, and there's just it really left an impact on me, just how scarring it was in that moment. And Mike is just one of the best to ever do it. I consistently say that. He's one of my favorite horror directors. And I would honestly say, if given the opportunity, I'd skip reading this one and just watch the movie. It's a faithful adaptation, but it essentially gets rid of everything that makes it sort of bloated in the novel, and really just streamlines it in a way that's more effective, and also paints our lead character's struggle in a way that's showing her overcome this struggle and who the person that she becomes, which I don't feel like the book hits as hard with that as the movie does, and that's something that I really appreciated as well. So have you read or seen Gerald's Game? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought the book was okay, but I thought the film was absolutely incredible. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.